He is now entering his 5th year as a head coach of your Los Angeles Rams. Joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show once again is Sean McVay. How are you, Coach?
I'm doing good, Rich. I appreciate you having me on, man. I started to get sensitive. It's been a long time.
It has been too long, and I'll just say my bad. But I greatly appreciate you giving me the time. And, you know, it's in my coming up on 2 decades of doing something like this with the NFL. Having a head coach on 2 weeks before the draft, usually I do like having that cat and mouse game of trying to get something out of them about their choice at the first round. But my soon-to-be bar mitzvahed kid is going to go to college by the time you get a first rounder the next time, Sean.
You know what? That's probably true. There's not much interest when our first pick is 57, and at this rate, you're right. We'll never pick in the first round as long as I'm coaching here.
It's, I mean, you know, hey, smoke them if you got them. Well, let's get to the reason why you don't have first-round picks in the next 2 drafts as we're getting set for this year's draft. What did you see in Matthew Stafford that made you think this is a perfect fit for what I'm seeing the Los Angeles Rams doing on offense for a while to come?
Yeah, I think he's a special competitor, Rich. I've always admired his game from afar, the toughness, the way that he rallied guys around him. You know, one of my favorite things about him is you just watch the way his teammates respond to him. You see some of the quotes that have come out about him from people that have been close to him. I can't tell you the amount of people that have reached out to me, whether it's coaches or teammates, that can't say enough good things about him. And then really when, you know, it was made that he was possibly a guy that could be on the market, and you start really studying his game as if, okay, we might have the potential to acquire this guy. You're thinking, man, he's pretty unique the way he sees the field. Obviously, all the, you know, the ability in the world in terms of being able to change the platform to make the throws. And then as you get to know him, you can't help but love the guy, and you see why people speak the way they do about him. And I am, fired up to say the least to get a chance to work with him.
Well, one thing he didn't have in Detroit is a consistent running game. I mean, the number of times apparently that he had a rusher go for 100 yards in a game, and he played there, as we know, for a decade, is in the teens. It's not a lot, or it could be 11.
I think I was going to say, I think the number is 11, Rich,
right.
Which, it's tough. That quarterback position is as tough as it gets. And, I do think, to hopefully be able to be a little bit more balanced, be able to alleviate some of the stress, but he can certainly do some unique things in those known passing situations. And fired up, man, real fired up.
So what exactly, if you could just dive a little bit into the X's and O's, do you think he can do at the quarterback position that makes your system, if you will, hum in a manner that maybe we hadn't seen in the last couple of years? What is that?
Yeah, I would say this, Rich. Jared has done so many great things for us. So, I don't necessarily know if it's, what hasn't been done. I think it's what Matthew brings to the table. When you do look at what he can do, you're able to execute and activate your play actions, your movements, those things. But then when you get into the known passing, the third downs, the 2-minute drills at the end of the half, end of the game, the way that he's able to move and manipulate the pocket, the way he's able to recognize and understand coverage and make all 5 eligibles come alive, the way that he can create off schedule in the pocket, out of the pocket, and just the overall competitiveness and command. Those are the things that I think he brings to the table. When you're really playing that position, when you're asked to get through progressions, recognize, read, solve problems protection-wise, you're seeing him do a lot of those things. And, to be able to work together, to collaborate, I think you're really excited about that collaboration because he's got a lot of good film and a lot of exposure to different systems that ultimately, you'll see us bring into our arsenal because it starts with the quarterback always in everything we do.
Sean McVay here on the Rich Eisen Show, head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. And I understand me asking about what Stafford can do in the offense that made you want to move in that direction, that in this world where we parse every word that comes out of a head coach's mouth, it might be viewed in a way as being denigrating to the guy that was there in Jared Goff. I totally understand that. That said, you're being attached to the hip of Goff, being hired to do something for somebody who was the first overall selection in the draft in this copycat league. Other coaches, I think, were hired based on your success with Jared Goff. So I'll just give you the macro question, and you can answer it however detailed as I hope you can. What happened with you and Jared Goff in Los Angeles?
I would say this. When I look at my contribution to it, Rich, I think sometimes you can let the success get in the way of the enjoyment and the core values that you want to operate by. And I wish I would have consistently communicated better, but, it's about, producing. And certainly that doesn't fall exclusively on his shoulders. But the opportunity to acquire a player of Matthew Stafford's caliber is there's really something to be said for that. That was the intriguing opportunity that presented itself. But, when you go back and you watch, there's a lot of good things that Jared did even late in the year. I mean, you see the way he played against Tampa on Monday Night Football in a big win for us, the way he played against Arizona at a key part in our season, and then to be able to come in, no practice, having the thumb surgery, and lead us to a playoff victory against Seattle. So there's a lot of good things that he did. I think he'll do a really nice job in Detroit, but it was a pretty unique opportunity when, Matthew was made. It was known that he was available, and we kind of explored it, and things accelerated faster than I think anybody could have anticipated.
So, but when do you make that decision to go for it? I mean, look, obviously you and Les Snead are known for your aggressiveness. It's not like we haven't seen something like this before, certainly out of Les before your tenure as the HC of the LAR. So at what point, did you make this decision that maybe it wasn't working out with you and Jared Goff in LA?
Well, I think when you look at just the landscape of the league and the amount of conversation that evolved and revolved around the quarterbacks that could be available, that maybe won out, that don't, he was a guy that's in that upper echelon of the league and performed at a high level that was really the only one that was truly available. The Lions had said, okay, we are going to allow you to seek a trade. Everything else is speculation. And so when that became kind of publicly known that he had talked to ownership and Rod Wood, and they granted that permission, now we're saying, all right, let's do our due diligence, really study the player. Fortunately, I do think that some of the relationships with Brad Holmes was helpful in facilitating a lot of that dialogue where it's not getting out, but there is, a certain level of mutual respect and trust on both sides. And really it was as soon as, it was made known that he was available that we kind of started exploring it, and the dialogue started. And, like's been kind of reported, Rich, both Matthew and I were in Cabo when everything finalized. And, as much as I don't think anybody would believe it, it is true that it happened by coincidence.
So you weren't like, let's go vacation and jump into the 2021 season together? That those things are mutually exclusive, is what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying we're on vacation, and then it's known that Matthew Stafford and his wife Kelly and a couple of their friends happen to be at the same resort. I said, you got to be me. I cannot believe that.
No kidding. Wow. So you didn't just go to the spa together and run into each other in terry cloth bathrobes? It literally was somebody just told you that, and you reached out, and then all of a sudden you're now coaching quarterback.
I guess so. I mean, Cabo, it was a pretty unique spot. It was one of the few that wasn't restricted in terms of being opened up. And I ran into Drew Brees was down there. I think Sean Payton, Coach Nagy at some point. So it was an NFL. We had the league meetings in Cabo early.
Wow. Sean McVay here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so while I have a few minutes left with you, let's have a little fun, because I know you've got your own house to be concerned about. You've got your own team. You've got your own competition in the NFC West. So commenting about somebody else's house in your division is something I'll give a little bit of a whirl here. You know about evaluating quarterbacks. You know about your system being your system, or at least your scheme being your scheme, and you knowing exactly what's right for it. So, and you know about being aggressive to go get the quarterback that you want if the opportunity is there. Do you think the 49ers made this trade to go up to number 3 overall without fully knowing which quarterback, not named Lawrence or Wilson, they're going to take? Do you think they're still truly evaluating who they're taking 3rd overall, Sean McVay? What do you think?
What do you think to that?
Okay, I like that you're turning the tables. That's a very veteran maneuver. I will say I don't think so. I think they have to know who they have. They can't say it because anything can happen. And, clearly they're not going to give up the pick. They're not doing this to trade it in for better picks. I think they have to know. And I think they got to go to the owner and saying, this is the guy that we think.
I'm saying NFC, with no chance that there wasn't a strong feeling or at least an appreciation for no matter what happens with those first 2 picks with Jacksonville and New York, that we're going to feel great about it. I do know this, and this is what you always respect about, Kyle and when I worked for Mike, they're going to do their work. They're going to be convicted in their beliefs. There's a security that exists where, they trust the expertise and their, due diligence. I know Kyle is going to be studying the heck out of these guys that are possibilities. And I do think that everything was done with a plan in mind, while also knowing that I'm sure they're still kind of really ironing it out to make sure. But I'd have a tough time knowing how intentional Kyle is about everything and John and those guys in San Francisco, that they didn't feel good no matter what the scenario is about either 1 or 2 guys or a few that would be available at that 3rd pick when you give that much up to go up.
But they might not be sharing it with many breathing people on the planet. But you think that when John Lynch struck that deal with Shanahan, with the Jed York green light, that they know who they're going to take right now?
Yeah, I think that there was an intentionality that no matter what happened with those first 2 picks, we're going to feel great about giving this up and what we're going to acquire in the player that we choose at the 3 spot.
Man, what a division. Arizona keeps adding people, too. We all know Seattle with the drama with Russell. Looks like he's coming back. It's a phenomenal. You're in a deep end of the pool, man, but it's a fun pool.
No, it's not fun.
Pool.
It's really not a fun pool. It's a pool that I wouldn't mind, not being in, to be honest with you. But
okay.
Hey, it makes it fun for you to say, hey, how is it fun swimming in the deep end 6 times a year, Sean?
Oh, you love the competition. Plus, you've got the Pacific Ocean, too. So you got the ocean also.
That's exactly right.
Before I let you go, the subject matter of off-season workout, voluntary off-season workouts being on the table as a conversation piece, as well as a potential not going to do this piece. We saw a handful of teams already, or players on these teams, say they're not going to participate in any in-person voluntary off-season workout programs. How do you, as an HC in the NFL, feel about the possibility of voluntary workouts not being, once again, for a second straight year, viable for a lot of players?
Yeah, I think for coaches, we're always going to want the opportunity to connect and work with our players, and that's not going to change. But I think it is important that we're listening, we're understanding the perspective that they're coming from, and then figuring out what is the best way to collaborate and to be able to communicate with one another in a way that ultimately gets the solution that's best for our football team. And so I think there's a lot of things that'll still need to be figured out when you bring into, the conversation vaccines. What does that mean? The league came out with a memo yesterday basically saying, hey, here's what the parameters are around phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So, we're going to be all virtual for the first month with our meetings.
Okay.
There'll be an option to come in and lift, and then we'll kind of just take it a day at a time, and we've got to be able to have the flexibility and the agility to adjust and adapt accordingly. But it's about listening and really collaborating with these guys is the important thing for us.
And who's the guy you talk to about that? Is it a Whitworth conversation? Who else do you talk to about that?
That's a Whitworth. That's an Aaron Donald. That's a Matthew Stafford. That is, Jalen Ramsey. That's those guys that have been your leaders, the Woods, the Cups. We've got a leadership committee that you really lean on those guys and understand their perspective. And, they're so well thought out, and they've got experience and an understanding from both ends of the spectrum. And so I think it would be naive of me not to listen to those guys. Coach,
appreciate it. Really always enjoy our chats. I'll be at the draft on Thursday night. I'll be thinking of you, raising it could be like a trading places across the country. I'll just raise my glass to you and looking good, Sean, feeling good, Rich, or something like that. We could have one of those type moments through the television set on that first night of the draft, and then we'll just catch up.
The Rams coaching staff will figure out a way to play draft bingo or something and just watch like fans.
I look forward to being the you got to have us on the screen. I mean, just
no doubt.
There is an I in Rich and Eisen, Coach. Just let's pull together in the right spot, okay? Let's do that.
Hey, I love it. It's always good to be back on. And,
thanks, Sean.
Hopefully sooner than later I can come see you guys in person, too.
I look forward to that. I pound the table for that. Thank you for the call. That's Sean McVay of the Los Angeles Rams right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.